Hello and welcome back on my channel. Thank you so much for joining me again for Manga Monday. I have to make a confession. Today we're not going to read a manga. This is the special graphic novel edition. I am going to continue with doing the whole manga process, but potentially I'm going to throw in one graphic novel a month because I have just started participating in the Sistah SciFi graphic novel. So I just found the Sistah SciFi graphic novel book club where we will be reading recently released and classic graphic novels by people of color. I want to diversify my reading because I feel like my reading over the past years was in a very narrow field. I will be reading one graphic novel for this club a month, and if you're interested in this type of graphic novel and potentially branching out, if you haven't read this type of stuff before, please consider joining. I just think it's a fabulous way of reading things that I normally might not pick up because they wouldn't appear in my feed. And currently I feel like everything that's in my feed is the new I don't know. But that is certainly not what I want to branch out into reading. I want to diversify, so let's have it. The Sistah SciFi graphic novel book club is starting with The Sacrifice of Darkness by Roxane Gay, and this is, as far as I know, based on a short story which I haven't read. All I know from this is that this man flies into the sun and unearths a catastrophe. Years later, two people fall in love and they're still dealing with the burden of this catastrophe. That's what I know. I find the cover very appealing. I love how he flies into the sun up here, and I know nothing about it, and I'm just super interested. I know that Roxane Gay, I believe, writes a lot of queer literature. I have seen a couple of her books, but I haven't read something by Roxane Gay yet, so I don't know what their writing style is and what the normal tone is. I will not be able to compare that, but super excited to dive into this. So 40 minutes later and I am done. I read this during the live reading sprints, so okay, I read it in one sprint. Luckily we had long enough sprints for me to fully complete it. That was really good. All right, so this is a complicated one. Okay, listen, hear me out. This book is complicated to grasp, and I think that this is going to be a hard case of you're either gonna love it or you're gonna hate it. I think if you want some logic, consistency, and physics in this world, you're most likely going to hate it because there's none. I was expecting some sci-fi, so I was waiting for scientific explanations for what was happening. I mean, we're starting out with this guy flying into the sun in this like little ass plane, which I found a little bit weird that this was happening. And then my first logical conclusion was, well, if there's no sun anymore, the Earth's gonna freeze, right? And that didn't happen. So then stuff was happening, bit after bit was starting to happen where I was like, okay, this is defying all physical concepts, but they're also not explained. So obviously in a sci-fi story, I would absolutely be open for a new concept of physics, but then it needs to be explained, and it wasn't explained in here. So I had a little bit of a problem with it, and then there were so many inconsistencies and so many things that logically didn't make sense that I was like, oh dear, this is going to be a tough one and I'm not gonna like it. And then relatively towards the end, it suddenly clicked in my head. I was like, I need to leave logic at the door. This book is not about the logic, it's not about the physics. Every single thing in here is an image, is a metaphor for something. So I am not supposed to I'm assuming I'm not supposed to take these things literally. And then it started making sense, and then it started to become really beautiful and powerful, and I started to really love it in a way. And that was really confusing because I was bouncing back and forth between loving and hating it. There's a few concepts that I want to touch on. First of all, I loved the color tone of this book. We have a very soft, peachy, orangey color tone for whenever we're talking about the past and the backstory of the person who is flying into the sun, and it kind of just feels old. And then we have this really dark, more of a Halloween orange, like a scary orange, oppressing tone, like a very a tone that makes this feel very heavy and claustrophobic for some reason, for after the event happens. So we're following two timelines throughout the book. And I started really enjoying this a lot when I left the logic at the door, and I started to think about all the images that this could stand for. And I started really enjoying the art in here, which I found beautiful, with some amazing images, with a big tree being painted as a backdrop whenever we were talking about marriage and children. And I believe that big trees are also often tied as a symbol for life. There's a lot of symbols. Yeah, so this, for example, where the child is born, they're leaning against a big tree, and then when they're being married, there's a big tree. And that's the only times when we have this like huge ass tree in this book. I ended up really enjoying it when I started thinking about the images and what they could mean. I was considering, we just had the Zoom meeting as well talking about this book, and I totally understood that some people had big issues with this book because of the logical flaws. And if you're expecting a sci-fi story and if you're waiting for explanations, you will not get it here. But if you were able to leave the logic at the door, you might warm up to it. There were also some questions around how some people made decisions and why they made these demands and why they acted this way, and that there was no explanation for it. And again, I do believe that this is absolute correct criticism because it's not being explained, but I'm not sure if it's supposed to be. I'm not sure if it's supposed to have a story, if it's supposed to have an explanation, or if it is just an image for something. If it's just and there's absolute pros and cons for this narrative that I'm drafting here, but I really enjoyed this part of the images and what they symbolize in my head. And for me, in my head, it started making sense. Was there good world building? Was there any science to follow? Was there any logic to follow? No, not at all. And if you needed that, this is not the book for you. If you were looking for a queer relationship, this is not the book for you. We have two very hetero relationships in here, and I think that some people who are following Roxane Gay might be thrown off by this. We also have a very clear patriarchy, which some readers of Roxane Gay might be thrown off by. And I'm very curious as to why Roxane Gay made these decisions when we know that they are a very strong voiced author in some other areas, and this feels so contradicting in a way. So I found that really interesting, that it for some reason felt so contradictory. I ended up giving it 4 out of 5 stars. I was honestly struggling between 2 out of 5 stars and 4 out of 5 stars because I really felt it as much that I wanted closure, I wanted explanations, I wanted a world that made sense. But in the end, the images in my head took over for me. And I'm just, the thing that still lingers with me, and this is a sign for me that this is not a 2-star, it's a 4-star, is because I'm still thinking about it. Even after the discussion, I'm not throwing it in the corner. I'm like, I'm glad that this is done. I'm thinking about what it could mean still, and it kind of became a piece of art for me. I know that sounds super cheesy and super like way too much praise than it might deserve. But art for me is about interpretation. Art for me is about seeing things between the lines and seeing things that aren't explained or that are just hinted towards. I'm not a person who loves abstract reading, but this was the exact perfect amount of clear hinting and leaving things out for me to make my own narrative around it. And one thing that I keep thinking about is that if and I'm looking at the page where I think that's like the second page, where the man flies into the sun, if this is a metaphor for suicide and if this person went towards the light, and this suicide impacted this community in a way that it created this huge darkness that fell upon this community because of this suicide, and they weren't able to gain this back over years. With this kind of mindset and with this kind of explanation, the book becomes a different narrative in a way, if you know what I mean. I don't know if you know what I mean, but anyways, I ended up really enjoying it. I know a lot of people in the book club end up not enjoying it as much. I enjoyed it because it is this art piece with these images in my head, and if you tell me that Roxane Gay wanted it to be different, the stars are gone. Because then I didn't get it, or then it's just bad. If Roxane Gay wanted this to be a logical science fiction one, then this would be 2 out of 5 stars, maybe even 1 out of 5 stars, because oh boy. Let me know what you think. Let me know if you have read it or if you want to pick it up and what your thoughts are, and I would love to continue the discussion about this. If you have some thoughts, let me know. I love different thoughts. I love the same thoughts. Anything. Let me know what you think about it. Alright, this is it for today. I hope you enjoyed it, even though I promised manga and I didn't deliver manga today. Let me know if it is okay for you that I'm giving one Manga Monday spot a month to this book club pick, because I'm really enjoying it, and you should really consider joining this book club. The people are amazing. It was so much fun in this Zoom meeting. So many amazing people, so many amazing opinions. I loved having different kinds of opinions, and it seems to be a very, very cool community that is absolutely worth joining. So if you're interested in this type of graphic novel, please consider joining. And before you leave, make sure that you hit that subscribe button. Leave me a comment, please. Make my day and leave me a comment. I love comments the most. And I hope to see you again on my channel real soon. Until then, bye!
Just loving this moment. Can we stay here forever? I'm loving this moment. Can we stay here together? If I could stop the time, don't you know that I would? 'Cause I'm just loving